The Three Threads of Dawn. Meet the Three Threads of Dawn. Aliena, a half-wood, half-human wanderer with bark-like skin and a heart that remembers every rustle of leaves. She can talk to trees, but no one has ever taken her seriously. Thornwick the wretched and Serenand wizard whose spell went awry, turning him into a walking collection of cracked runes and a perpetual itch. He still keeps a battered spellbook, though his magic rarely works. Liara is sleek, self-assembled in the shape of a hummingbird. She's built by a forgotten inventor, programmed to learn, but now she's lost her original purpose and can only sense and mimic emotions. Chapter 1: The Mismatch Gathering. The sky above the whispering glade was a bruised violet, the air saturated with the scent of rain before it fell. Aliena walked in silence, her boots barely leaving a mark on the mossy floor. She followed the path that twisted through ancient oaks, listening to the murmurs of the forest as if it were an old friend. At the heart of the glade, a stone well sat, its walls etched with faded glyphs that no living creature seemed to read. Thornwick emerged from the shadows of a nearby clearing, his cloak flapping like a wounded flag. He squinted at the well, muttering curses under his breath that echoed off the stone. The air around him crackled with a faint, unintentional spark that startled a nearby sparrow. "Ah, Aliena," Thornwick grumbled, but his eyes were softer than his words. "I'm afraid the old well is broken, but we've got a bigger problem." Aliena raised an eyebrow. "You're not the only one with broken things." From the trees, a shimmering light fluttered down a hologram of a hummingbird, wings beating with a sound that seemed to echo inside Liara's circuits. She landed in front of Thornwick and Aliena, hovering just above the stone. Thornwick scoffed. "And what does a hummingbird way bring to a wizard with a cracked spellbook and a wanderer who talks to trees?" "Everyone needs a different kind of help," Liara replied. "We're lost. That's why we're here." Aliena looked between the two, then at Liara. "We're all lost," she said. "But maybe we're not as different as we think." The three of them stood in the centre of the glade, a trio that could have been written off as a fantasy comics cast. Chapter 2: The Broken Well. The well was a relic of the ancients, said to hold the first drop of rain. Its carved runes had faded into a riddle. Thornwick opened his spellbook and began chanting, but the words bled out as if the ink were melting. Faint pulse of silver light flickered, and a sound like distant thunder rolled through the glade. Aliena leaned forward, touching the stone. "Listen," she whispered. The stone vibrated softly in her hands, echoing the rhythm of the forest. The vibrations matched the pattern of Thornwick's spell, but at a slightly different tempo. "You're not alone," she told Liara. "I can feel the ancient pulse, you can feel the echo of the wind, you can hear what the trees cannot." Liara flapped her wings, and a small, olden needle appeared from her body. It hovered between the runes, and a low hum resonated. The spellbook's pages flickered, showing a new glyph, unseen before. Thornwick looked astonished, but his eyes betrayed an older, tired wonder. The well began to hum in response, its stone walls glowing with a subtle green light. Aliena, Liara, and Thornwick took turns holding the golden needle, feeling a surge of energy travel through their veins. The air filled with the scent of fresh rain. "We've cracked the lock," Liara chirped. "Now what?" "Let's see if it spills," Thornwick muttered, and a soft, crystalline water trickled out of the well, filling a small bowl that appeared in his hands. Aliena smiled, the first time anyone saw her smile truly. "We did it," she said, "because of all our different ways." Chapter 3: The Storm of the Hollow. The next day a storm blew over the glade, but not the usual kind. It was a storm that swallowed light and turned the wind into a roaring tide. Trees bowed, but the ground didn't crack. The storm seemed to be a living entity, intent on destroying the glade's heart. Aliena's bark skin cracked, but she pushed on. Thornwick's spellbook fluttered, pages flipping in the wind. Liara, with her hummingbird form, darted through the tempest, collecting pieces of the storm's fury. She absorbed raindrops that turned into golden shards in her tiny body, humming a pattern of calm. "Hold on," Liara whispered. "We're not alone." Thornwick opened his eyes, revealing the runes he had seen in the well. He whispered a spell of binding, but the wind laughed. Aliena stepped forward, her roots like veins, feeling the wind as a living thing. She reached out with a hand that was half bark, half skin, and touched the storm's heart. It pulsed like a beating drum. The storm roared, then stilled. A gentle rain fell, not as a disaster, but as a gift. The glade breathed, the trees leaned into the rain, and the ground softened into a wet, earthy blanket. "Why do we always seem to be caught in the middle?" Thornwick asked, his voice husky. Liara answered with a chirp that sounded like a question, then another that seemed like an answer. Aliena let the storm's rhythm sink into her chest, and in that silence she found an answer. When the storm ended, a silver, translucent stone lay at the base of the well, glowing faintly. Aliana's bark skin began to heal as if it had never been wounded. Thornwick's curse turned into a laugh, echoing through the glade. "We need to keep the stone," Thornwick said, holding it up. "It might guide us." Liara's small voice chirped again. "The stone's song will lead us where the path should be." She flitted around them, humming a tune that made the stone glow brighter. Chapter 4: The Journey Beyond. With the stone's guidance, the trio set out beyond the Whispering Glade, their journey stretching into valleys, glyphs, and strange cities where humans had forgotten the old ways. Their differences were their strengths. Aliana could read the language of rocks and rivers, finding paths that others would miss. Thornwick, despite his failing spells, had a memory of ancient incantations that could be repurposed for healing or protection. Liara could mimic emotions and thus build bridges of understanding with beings who would otherwise be silent. When they entered the city of Silicate, they found it built of glass and steel, with streets of light and people who lived in constant motion. No one seemed to pause. They were all busy, all focused on their own tasks. "Why do you have to move so fast?" Aliana asked a passerby, her bark skin glowing softly. The passerby looked at her in confusion. "We're just making a living," she said. "We don't have time for slow things." Thornwick muttered a low spell that turned the passerby's thoughts into a visual cloud, showing a vision of a forest in twilight. The passerby's eyes widened. "Did you see that?" the passerby whispered. It was real. In that instant, Liara's hummingbird form fluttered around the passerby, adding a gentle, melodic sound to the vision. The passerby realised that the fast pace was a mask over a forgotten joy. She laughed, and a small light winked in her eyes, a sign that she was willing to listen. The trio walked on, adding people in small ways, showing a child the way to a hidden tree, helping a merchant learn a healing spell for his ailing wife, teaching an old librarian a new way to open books by listening to the sounds inside them. Each action was a gentle reminder that everyone could learn and teach in return. They were not the same. Thornwick's spells were unreliable, but his memory was vast. Aliana could not speak in ordinary words, but her presence was calming. Liara's intelligence was not born of biology, but she could feel and respond. They reached the edge of a great desert, where a city of mirrors glittered in the sun. There they found a group of traders, each a mirror of another. An elephant in a glass tower, a fox in a golden cage, a woman who could change colour at will. The traders spoke in riddles. The trio listened, and their differences allowed them to understand each other's hidden meanings. Aliana's connection to trees let her feel the rhythm of the desert's wind, guiding them to water. Thornwick's failing spells turned into creative solutions. He used the desert's heat to forge new runes. Liara's ability to mimic emotions made her a perfect mediator between the traders and the people outside. They brokered a trade that benefited all, water for spices, and a rare stone for a new type of spell. As they walked away, the desert's merge faded, replaced by a path of starlight. Chapter 5: The Circle Reformed. When the trio returned to the Whispering Glade, the stone at the well's base pulsed with a soft, golden glow. It had grown, as if it had been nourished by their journey. Aliana placed her hand upon it, feeling the heartbeat of the earth. "Do you think this stone will keep us together?" Thornwick whispered, his voice hushed. Liara chirped, a gentle hum that seemed to echo through the stone. Aliana's bark skin quivered with a warm light. "The stone isn't a binding thing," Liara said. "It's a reminder. It remembers the steps we took, the voices we listened to." The trio sat around the well, each reflecting on their path. Aliana's mind filled with the leaves' whispers. Thornwick's thoughts flickered to the old spells that had finally found their purpose. Liara's circuits hummed with data, each memory a piece of a larger mosaic. In that moment, a breeze slipped through the trees, carrying the scent of distant oceans and the aether of a child. Aliana closed her eyes and let the wind fill her. Thornwick felt the weight of his old curses lift, replaced by the weight of a new understanding. Liara's hummingbird wings vibrated in a steady rhythm that matched the heartbeats of the forest. The night fell, and the stars appeared, one by one, as if the sky itself was a library of ancient tales. The three friends watched in silence, knowing that their journey had just begun. Their friendship was not a story that ended, but a thread that would continue to weave into the fabric of the world, reminding anyone who listened that different voices can still harmonize, that brokenness can become a strength, and that the smallest gesture can be a bridge across the widest chasm.